So we hired an executive director, part-time. I think we started in January, but I don't think we really got anything going until February. And of course, the event at the time was usually the second weekend in June, commemorating the anniversary of Stonewall. So I think Tim Williams became the executive director like around February 1st. And it was a part-time gig for a few months. And he was doing Art Walk, so he had a part-time gig, and this sort of helped fill in some time for him, so it worked out great. And he knew about, you know, managing large amounts of volunteers, you know, managing this city space, you know, getting space for things like that, talking to vendors, talking to community groups. He was doing all that already in the same respects with Art Walk, so moving over to Pride was pretty easy. I shouldn't say pretty easy, but at least he had all the right background. And he was very easy to get along with, a very nice guy. And, you know, was saying, and I think he was the only one who applied for the job too, which was another big plus in his hat. And we weren't paying anything. I don't know. He worked for 4 months, pretty much full time, and I think we paid him, you know, maybe $4,000 or $5,000, something like that. So it wasn't a lot of money. Even in '89, it should have been a little bit more than that.
He was a professional. He really, he knew how to produce events. He knew how to do those large, you know, I mean, such coordination goes into dealing with public agencies, the park, the city, the police department. The logistics are staggering. And then the festival is a whole other logistical parade of things. And then there are the volunteers. I mean, you know, the incredible volunteers, love the years, and there are still people who are volunteering now, who were volunteering then, back in those days. I mean, without the volunteers, there is nothing, there is no Pride. But he handled it all like an absolute pro. He knew, he was so organized. Everything, and it had never been that organized until Tim came along. And, you know, everything had its place, everything had its particular discussion, and everything had its manager. And it was organizationally, it was completely professional. And which made, you know, our lives on the board very easy, made us very, very happy. And it further defined the role of the board. As it got more professional, the board became less of a hands-on board and became more in the direction of what a board should be, and that is for an organization like Pride, overseeing the fiscal management and developing policy.
Tim was experienced, organized, knew all the right people, and knew how to put stuff together, which at that time we didn't know. We knew what we wanted to do, and we were grassroots, but he took it to another level, and we never looked back.
Tim Williams brought experience and professional skills. We were so lucky to have him. He had been working at downtown events, and in fact was recommended to the board by a straight man who was an officer in the University Heights Community Association, and his name slips my mind, but he had been active in one of the downtown groups, and Tim had worked for the group. So he knew that Tim could manage outdoor events, and you know, outdoor events are complicated. You know, you got to supply electricity and lights and booths and water, and you got to get traffic permits, you know, to close streets and all that sort of thing. You need a lot of time to set up, and you need a lot of time to break down and clean up without getting, you know, so you don't get in trouble with the city. And, you know, he just, all those things which we used to invent every year with the new set of volunteers and a new set of board members, he was an expert. He was a professional. You know, you need booths, you call the booth rental place. You need AV, you know, lights, microphones, sound, electricity generation. You know, you call your outdoor rental places, and he had connections and working relationships with all those groups. We put out a want ad, a call for executive directors, and we were hoping we would get a few people, and we were still kind of worried who would, you know, would professionals want to work for Gay Pride? We got one resume. It was Tim's, and you know, we were so lucky when we met him. We couldn't believe this young man who was doing exactly what we needed, wanted to come over and work for the biggest gay event of the year, and clearly be as out as you can be in San Diego at that time. He was professional, respectful, competent, and a really nice guy from the very first meeting.
That first year I was involved, and I met a man named Tim Williams. And my first real strong memory of Tim, outside of just him standing in front of a large group of volunteers, of which I was one, was at about 3 o'clock in the morning, the day before the Pride Festival began. And we were the last 2 people on site. And Tim was really concerned about the dew being on the signs. And he asked me if I would take a rag and start wiping the dew off of the signs so that they wouldn't curl up. And immediately I realized he was a man of my own heart, because that's the sort of thing that I would do, every little detail. And so we became incredibly good friends, just real sort of soulmates, actually. Just with a lot of things, perspectives that we shared about the festival and the parade and just our volunteerism. And so for planning for the next year, he co-opted me and another friend of his named Marianne Travaglione, who became a very good friend and still is a very good friend of mine, to help him sort of be his left and right hand people. And we would get together on Friday nights and the weekends, and we would meet places and various establishments in Hillcrest and drink margaritas, and that's how we would plan the event. And then we would go to his house and stuff envelopes and lick stamps, and so it was a real grassroots and somewhat alcohol-driven planning sessions, but they were a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. What was Tim like? Tim was a lot of fun. He was a real people person, and he was the ultimate organizer. I think he was OCD, you know, because every little thing had to be perfect, and he thought through everything. Had a level of professionalism, and I think that really was the word that captured Tim and what he gave to the event, and generally to the community at large, actually, because of course, in addition to doing Pride, he also did AIDS Walk, and so he had a level of professionalism that he brought to the events that made a significant difference in how they looked and felt, and also the amount of resources that they had at hand. So he was very good at getting sponsors. He was just phenomenal. I mean, he was very hard. He expected a lot, so he was hard to work for. Even if you were a volunteer, he expected perfection. And so, and he got it. I mean, he was the sort of person that people felt very good about working with.